All right, so I think we can get started. I'm Brian. I'm a developer relations engineer here at Kilo, and today is a really special event. We've got some exciting news to cover. We've got Scott, our fearless leader, co-founder, and CEO, here to chat with us about how we do Kilo Speed, and then I'm going to take you on a first-hand tour of what it actually looks like to build at Kilo Speed. And if you've been following along with any of our content lately, you might already recognize that phrase. But I think by the end of this, you're going to have a really exciting understanding of what Kilo Speed means on this day, December 12th, 2025, and what it's going to look like in the future. So we've shipped a lot of new features over the past few weeks and month, and I'm really excited to share them. So stick around. It's going to be a fun one. All right, I'm just going to share my screen here, and we can pop up some slides. All right. So let me run through the agenda real quick so you know what to expect. First, we're going to talk about our big announcement, with which some of you might have already heard. And then I'll hand it over to Scott for about 15, 20 minutes, and he's going to talk about how we work and ship and offer Kilo Speed. And then I'll come back on and we'll dig into what it looks like to actually use this stuff. Because I've been really excited about how all these new pieces fit together in practice. And I'm already incorporating a bunch of our new features into my own personal workflow. So I'm excited to show it to all of you and show you what that looks like in practice. Sound good? All right, let's do it. So, the news. As some of you may have already seen, Kilo raised $8 million in seed round funding to continue to build the most complete coding agent. This is obviously really exciting for us and for the Kilo community because we see Kilo as the all in one platform for agentic engineering. And that's not just a tagline, right? It's genuinely what we're striving for every day. And we talk about reducing developer friction, which is what we're truly obsessed with. We're talking about AI that doesn't just write code, but that architects, plans, orchestrates, implements, reviews, debugs, and deploys. And what's really exciting is having that entire development lifecycle in one place with agents that actually work together intelligently. And that brings me to our definition of kilo speed. So, kilo speed is a state of effortless, joyful flow achieved when you can focus without dependencies, blockers, or friction of any kind. So, an example would be every light was green on my commute this morning, and I made it to work in record time. I was moving at kilo speed. And rather than me trying to explain it, I want to bring up someone who can speak to it much better. The man who wrote the very Kilo Speed manifesto itself, which is actually live on our website now. So someone will throw the link in the chat to that, which is our Kilo's CEO and co founder, Scott Breitenother. So, Scott, if you want to hop on stage,
Hello, hello.
thanks for hopping in.
Thanks for having me. I'm having one of these long-time listener, first-time caller type of moments. I appreciate you give me the spotlight for a moment. You always do such a great job on these webinars and live streams.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm excited to hear you talk.
Me too. Let me share my screen. Hopefully, I can do it as effortless and smoothly as you do it. Let me get it up here. And cool. Is it coming through?
Yeah, looks good.
Great, amazing. Thanks, Brian.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm excited to talk about a kind of a topic that is near and dear to my heart, which is kilo speed, or at Kilo, how we like to, what we refer to as how we're already living in 2028. Kind of, jumping in, reintroduce myself. I'm Scott, based in the East Coast of the U.S. in Washington D.C. Add me on LinkedIn, send me a note, reach out. I'm Scott at kilocode.ai. Always happy to chat. I'm always happy to talk about Kilo. Um, want to jump right in to basically talk about this huge transformation that we're seeing in the market, and how engineering is evolving before our eyes. So we kind of, Kilo's been around since March. That's when we launched, and I kind of think about the world that we were living in then, and the world that kind of a lot of engineering teams are still living in, and then the world that we're living in today at Kilo. And back in March, we were shipping one feature every 2 to 3 weeks. But fast forward to today, it's 1 to 2 features per week. And if you've seen kind of Ryan's videos, his roundups of our product releases, you can see it's true. We're basically producing a major feature release, adding a major feature to the Kilo experience once or two times a week. And what's changed? It's not the team size, it's not the deadlines, is that we actually stopped working like it's 2023. We stopped working like we were in the past, and we started working like we were in the future, like we were in 2028. And over the next few minutes, I'm going to tell you a little bit about this. I'll stick around at the end so we can answer any questions after Brian's demo. But again, like I said, reach out to me anytime. This is something that I and the rest of the Kilo team are really, really passionate and are always happy to chat about. So what's the old paradigm? What is this 2023 world that is just kind of so clearly dying? The first is this kind of developer's code monkey, writing every single line, you know, manually kind of creating templates and boilerplate. Um, Kind of that's the kind of more technical code writing side, but also on the collaboration side. Um, this world of endless meetings. When you get to the end of a day and you're like, what did I do? And then you look at your calendar and you're like, I did a lot of that. Um, you know, endless PR review bottlenecks. You might have a great feature that you've worked on, but it's kind of sitting in someone else's review queue for days or weeks. And then this kind of, we call them velocity killers, waiting on others, context switching, just kind of getting out of that like joyful flow state that Brian was describing earlier. So, that's the old. What's the new? What's the world that we live in every day at Kilo? Um, it's the developer's orchestrator. You are, doing what humans do best, which is kind of taste, managing, selecting the vision, managing AI agents, and letting kind of all that kind of code monkey work, happen automatically through kind of the agents that you're managing. Um, Versus kind of this endless meetings. The paradigm that we really subscribe to is, and I just take this, the please take this the right way, but like we really avoid collaboration. We only do it when it adds value to the experience. I think too often, you fall into this trap that collaboration is just like an exercise you do just to maybe make everybody feel better or to like tick a box. But like when you look back, it really isn't needed. And big hats off to the Post Hog team. They have a great blog post about anti-collaboration. Really, really encourage, and maybe we can just drop that in the chat. And so, on our side, it's end-to-end ownership of products by engineers, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that, what that means. But it's essentially kind of an engineer owns something and doesn't need to rely on anybody else to ship it, to go from kind of ideation through development and production. And then, what this means is there's velocity multipliers instead of killers. You're not waiting, you're not switching tools, you're not kind of like, oh, hurry up and wait, I did this and I need a review. Instead, you just have this deep focused flow state from the time you log in the morning, and maybe you kick off, the job on your, an agent on your phone on the way to work, and then pick it up on the in VS Code when you get there. But you're kind of in that deep flow state from the beginning to the end of your day. And so I want to talk about a little bit more about the exact, some specific examples of this in action at Kilo. And so at Kilo, we work using Kilo because for us, Kilo Speed is this kind of this cultural approach, but it's also kind of the having a tool that works with you, not against you. And I'll tell you more about that later. But kind of, each of our engineers is not an individual contributor anymore. They're all managers, and I think that is the future. Our engineers are, they're not managing human teams; they're managing agent teams, and so each of our developers is managing, I would say on average 3 to 5 specialized agents at the same time. Here are the 5 default modes that come with Kilo, from orchestrator, which you could even YOLO from concept to kind of end working product, as Brian showed you on a few calls, to architect agent, which can help you kind of architect the systems, code to code, ask if you've got questions about your code, and debug when, inevitably there's questions and challenges. But, each of these models have, I like to think of it as a non-technical side as like specialist personalities and areas of expertise. And so you have engineers managing each of these, kind of managing a small squad of specialist agents. And so if we look at, an example of how this applies at Kilo, I'm going to talk about deploy, which is a feature that we've chatted about a bunch recently. And again, you've seen Brian push Kilo Man live using our deploy feature. This one engineer, Yevgeny on our side, has owned deploy end to end. And I think Brian, didn't you have an anecdote about the first time Yevgeny kind of came in?
Yeah, I do. So it was maybe my 3rd or 4th week at the company, and we all met up in Amsterdam, for a focus week, which is like when we spend a week together, sorta hackathon style, shipping stuff together and meeting each other, and I hadn't met the team yet, so I we were sitting down to dinner on the first night, and I met our other co-founder, Sid Sabrandi, and the rest of the team. It was great meeting him and everybody, and then partway through the dinner, Sid leaned over to Evgeny, who built Deploy, and was like, "Hey, what do you think about one-click deployments?" And Yevgeny, who's very stoic, was like, "Sure." And then Sid said, "How's Thursday?" And Evgeny said, "Okay." And then guess what we all got to demo on Thursday that week? And I also forgot to mention that Monday was Evgeny's first day at the company. So on his 4th day, he shipped deploy. It's like my favorite feature in Kilo, frankly. I think I still might be the number one user, so I'm waiting for, a Kilo community member to usurp me. But that story just kind of characterizes like one of my first experiences with seeing Kilo speed actually happen inside the company.
I mean, that's just one of many stories of many features. It's happening every
True.
day. And so, great anecdote. I love that because that feels like very on brand for Kilo Speed and very on brand for Yevgeny.
Yeah.
So Yevgeny, he logged in on Monday for the first time, had a spec, had some guidance on conceptually what we wanted to achieve, and then he rolled with it. He kind of used our orchestrator agent to break down the feature. He was using code to code. He was shipping the working code within 5 days and not 5 weeks. And I believe 2 weeks later it was in GA. Um, there was no coordination tax. He wasn't waiting on sign off to get going. He had a direction. He just ran, and he was kind of letting the agents handle the implementation while he was handling the vision. He was really the visionary, the leader, the manager. And of course, there's continuous validation. We use the debug agent to debug. And another feature that Suresh started that Monday, the same day as Yevgeny, is our code reviewer, which is now live as well. And so on our side, yes, we're getting constant code reviews, but they're from agents, and there's humans in the loop, and every bit of code that goes into production is reviewed by a human. But with the accelerator is that we have things like the kind of the AI code reviewer to help us move even faster. And so, kind of zooming out, what does this look like? The developers setting the direction, high level requirements, creative decisions, bringing that taste in, making architectural choices. And then what's really important is quality gates, because again, um, I think where this kind of vibe coding or agentic development comes, gets kind of a bad rap is when people are really taking the human completely out of the loop. And for us, the human is core foundation. And what we're doing is we're multiplying the human. We're not replacing them. We're letting us focus on what makes the human so good and letting the agent handle boilerplate, the details, recovery, finding that missing comma, documentation, development, and lookup. And at the end of the day, what does that mean? It means we've got a great engineer that is having 10x, 100x the impact, because it's not just them, it's them plus their team of agents. Um, and so, just kind of really hitting home, we really believe in the empowerment model. We trust our engineers to own the product and the vision. And this is after deployment too. They're on Discord. They're getting feedback from the users. They're making the products better. Um, our engineers are, there's reduced dependencies, so they're not waiting for a back end, front end team. They are full stack end to end, supported by a full stack end to end team of agents. Um, they are kind of getting these fast feedback loops where, again, it's not days or weeks or months. Intraday, hourly, they're having that feedback cycle with debugging agent, a code reviewer agent, and they're shipping without this kind of overhead communication overhead of constantly aligning with the rest of the team. um, and then what I think is really special about this is, like, there's this, we call it the meta advantage, or like crudely eating our own dog food. um, you know of course, you might be thinking, of course, Kilo can ship fast. You built the tool, but that's the point. We're building the tool, and we're developing this product development flywheel where any feature that you see live, we're dog fooding for days or weeks on our side before it gets live. So we're using Kilo to build Kilo. And then we feel those pain points. Our kind of engineers are using those tools every day. Like our engineers are living in Kilo all day, every day. Um, and then they're feeling pain points or seeing opportunities, and they're shipping features to fix those or kind of unlock new kind of experiences. And because we're making Kilo better every day, um, we're then able to ship faster because we have better features. And so we feel the problem, we fix the problem, we ship faster, repeat. And I think code review is such a great example of that, where we felt the drag of needing to kind of bring in a human for every single code review. Suresh got in there, developed code review, and that's only made Kilo better, and it's made the Kilo team faster at developing Kilo. And so Kilo now gets better faster. Um, and then another example, parallel agents. We had engineers who are frankly frustrated by doing everything in series. I'm going to run one task. When that finishes, run another task. And that kind of meant, there was constant context switching. There was just kind of more challenges in slowing folks down. And now we develop parallel agents, which essentially allows us to run multiple AI, multiple agentic tasks at the same time, either locally or in the cloud using our cloud agents. Um, and that means that features like deploy are shipped in 1 week instead of 3. If instead of kind of waiting to do one task and another task, we're kind of multitasking and really just supercharging this agentic team that our engineers are managing. Um, and so, zooming out here, what's the big difference? Other tools, they're not necessarily built by teams that use them daily. The features are theory, they're kind of on the whiteboard. They're not feeling the pain points, so they're slow to fix the pain points. On the Kilo side, built by the engineers who spend their day in Kilo all day, every day. Features are based on real pains and real opportunities that we're seeing. And then it's fast iteration and kind of, that's why we have Code Reviewer. That's also why we have the MCP marketplace. That's also why we have cloud agents. These are all features that came from real needs from the Kilo team using Kilo every single day. And so, from our side, we see that every feature we ship makes us faster at shipping that next feature. And I mean, we feel really strongly that as you kind of adopt these Kilo speed principles, you're going to see the benefits too. Um, and then, maybe I kind of just wrap up with a few points on, obviously, Scott, everything you're saying makes sense, but why isn't everybody doing this? And there's some real barriers that kind of our mission at Kilo is to break down. First of all, there's a tool problem. Most ADI, coding tools are black boxes. You don't know what model you're running, can't see what the prompts or the contexts are. You're limited to only one lab or set of models, so you're kind of always on last year's model, and you're locked into these rate limits. It's a Friday night, you're trying to ship something out, but kind of all of a sudden things are slower, or the context windows are condensed, or you're getting throttled. You can't customize, and you can't choose the best model for the task because at Kilo we have over 500 models, and we're big believers in kind of, and our team is like, yes, we use great kind of models from across the board, but we kind of, each one has their own secret sauce, and we like to use the combination of those models so we have the best, most effective, and most cost effective model for every job. There's a trust problem. There's hallucinations that kind of, make up things. We see in other platforms. There's hidden failures. There's errors that are kind of not surfaced by the agentic development platform, and there's context gaps. There's, we see a lot of agentic coding platforms don't actually kind of understand your code base, don't index it. And then there's lastly, a control problem. You can't run the agents in parallel in a lot of kind of tools out there. You can't specialize the agents. There's kind of like a, everything, you're a hammer and everything looks like a nail. It's one size fits all. And you can't switch models based on task complexity. Because again, at Kilo, if we have a complex task, we're bringing in a frontier model. If we don't, we might bring in a kind of more cost-effective model that might make better sense for that use case. And then, how does Kilo, as the all-in-one platform built for the future, solve this? We're open. We've got kind of Apache 2 license. You can see kind of how the sausage is made anytime. We've got every model under the sun. There's no hidden compression. What you put in is what actually goes to the kind of the model providers. And then you can use the Kilo Gateway or BYK and have complete pricing transparency. You're not worrying about kind of markups or secret prices or throttling. You pay exactly what the list price is for every model. We got 5 specialist modes. You can run in parallel, models in parallel, and we've got a great MCP marketplace. So you can bring in tools like Context 7 for hallucination-free code. It works where you work. CLI, JetBrains, VS Code. Um, you know, we're not asking you to kind of change your flow. You shouldn't have to. You should work where you want to work. Um, and then, lastly, I'll say it's proven. We're #1 in Open Router for a reason. 750,000 developers have downloaded Kilo. We process which seems insane to me, over 6 trillion tokens every month. And just I know we want to get to Brian's, but the last note I'd say is like, the proof is in production. I mean, you can say, "Hey, Scott, hey, Kilo, this philosophy sounds great, but I'm calling BS. It's not working." But like, look at what we've shipped in the last 6 weeks, and you can see that we practice what we preach when it comes to Kilo speed, and it has great results in kind of code velocity, shipping velocity, and just kind of output. I've talked a lot, and I want to save lots of time for Brian's demo. Reach out to me. I'm Scott at kilocode.ai. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Always happy to chat about Kilo Speed. Again, it's something we're extremely passionate about. And now I'm going to stop talking and let the star of the show take it over.
Oh no, you're the star, Scott. Thanks so much. That was great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and going back to what you said about empowering engineers to become managers of these agents. So like I've been working in tech for a little bit, doing DevRel, and compared to like our engineers, like my development skills are negligible. I think I've fashioned myself into a somewhat halfway decent vibe engineer, but having Kilo in my development workflow and building all these demos for these webinars and whatnot, I genuinely feel so much more empowered than I did 6 months ago. And I truly believe that I can build like anything I think of using these tools. And I would consider myself to be an intermediate developer at the best. So it's a super exciting time for people of super experienced developers who want to even multiply their workflow even further, and also for beginner and intermediate developers who want to build something but maybe don't have the context of that experience. So that's one thing I'm really excited about. Thanks again, Scott, for that talk. If anyone has questions about anything Scott mentioned, feel free to drop them in the chat. There's also a dedicated questions channel, which is a little easier for us to answer, and we're gonna revisit those at the end of the session to answer as many as we can. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen again here. And we're going to talk about here we go. Okay, so it's great to talk about vision and strategy in the bigger picture, which helps us contextualize this landscape that we're all navigating together right now in this very accelerated moment in the world of engineering and AI. But what also matters, and what I'm really excited about to show today, is when you sit down to build something, how does it feel, right? Does it feel fast and frictionless and agentic? Well, instead of walking through more slides, I just want to show you. So I'm going to run through a demo of building something from scratch. And as I go, I'll point out the different pieces of the platform and how they all fit together. And fair warning, I'm going to move pretty quick because there's a lot of ground to cover. But that's the point of Kilo Speed, right? Building something, as Scott mentioned, from idea to shipped at a rapid pace with nothing slowing me down as the sole owner of this end-to-end experience. And I have to say, I think this might be the most live demo I've ever done. So hopefully that doesn't come around to bite me in the bud later. But I'm excited. I think it's going to go great. So, in the spirit of the winter holiday season, we're going to use a bunch of the new Kilo features to build kind of like a silly interactive holiday card for developer teams. So, what the card is going to do is it'll ingest the names of your teammates and produce like a goofy, silly short story, kind of like a Mad Lib involving all of your teammates. And then it'll display it in an aesthetic, shareable virtual holiday card. So, sort of like I said, winter and holiday Mad Libs for your developer team. And to accomplish this, we're going to create two systems. First is we're going to start by building the short story API. So that's going to be like an API app that generates a short story when given a list of names. And we're going to do that separately so that any holiday card app or any app that you build, even in the audience, can use this API and have the same experience. Programmatically implement it into whatever front end app you have. And then we're going to build our own front end app that uses the API and actually generates the card or the part we look at as the end user. So I am going to do most of this live. I did record the very first building portion that just involves, watching Kilo run through the first chunk of development from like empty Next.js app to the first iteration of the API. And that's for one reason, right? I've discussed this in previous webinars, but AI coding is non deterministic, right? Meaning that we'll get different results each time. So I have no idea how long certain tasks will take, even if I've done them before. And that's especially true for ones that require a little bit deeper architecture project planning. So to spare us all from sitting here and watching a screen in silence for several minutes, I just recorded this first bit where Kilo made the first iteration of the short story API in one shot. So we're going to share that video now. And I hope you can all see it. And I'm also going to narrate what's going on. Okay, so started by opening VS Code and I gave Kilo this prompt. Create an app in this Next.js repo that has a single API route at API generate story. This endpoint should accept a post request with a JSON body containing team name and optional string and names array of strings. The endpoint should call the Anthropic API Claude to generate short holiday story. The story should feature all the names provided, giving each person a small moment. It should be slightly dev flavored, references to PRs, slacks, stand-ups, refactors, reverts, all that. And should be a little bit roasty but corporate appropriate. So nothing actually mean, but something fun that's actually funny. It should include a winter holiday story that goes slightly sideways, and you'll use the Anthropic SDK where I'll provide the API key as an environment variable. And then it should include a system prompt to Anthropic to set the tone of the story correctly. So, as Scott mentioned, Kilo has 5 default specialized modes. There's architect for planning and design. There's code, which is the default for implementation. There's ask for when you have questions about the code base but don't actually want to change anything. There's debug for troubleshooting. I'm running out of breath here because I'm yapping so much. There's orchestrator for coordinating subtasks across different modes. So we're going to go with orchestrator since we're going for a one-shot result here. So we'll go to orchestrator, and then I'm going to choose OpenAI's GPT 5.2 as the model here. So if you didn't already hear, OpenAI released GPT 5.2 yesterday, and it was basically immediately available in Kilo. And we actually had early access to it too. So I've had a lot of fun playing around with it already. I even built a World Cup style soccer video game in one shot, which we posted on our YouTube channel, the video of me doing that, and also on X. So you can go find that. Maybe someone will post it in the channel. I think that's a pretty fun video too. But we're going to select GPT 5.2 from the model selector here, since we require a little bit more architecture and reasoning for this kind of one-shot app. And then we'll go ahead and send that off. And the video is just going to speed up through the development here, where we watch orchestrator mode distribute subtasks to plan, implement, and test the functionality. And we'll speed up here. And there it is. It's done. So last night, I went ahead and I forked the repo at this point so I could kind of continue testing it and have a fresh version of the project at this stage to do in the demo. And I have a repository here. So I'm going to exit out of this and we'll go. I have a repository in GitHub that contains this API app up until this point. And this is where I'm kind of got to introduce code reviews. So if we go to our Kilo dashboard, right, we can see that we have code reviews enabled for our Kilo org. And with code reviews, as Scott mentioned, you get AI-powered feedback with inline comments and suggestions on every PR for the repositories that you enable. And you can configure things like the model that it uses, the review style, whether you want it to be more strict, lenient, or somewhere in the middle. You can select the repositories that it has access to. So we have already selected our API app here. And you can give it some focus areas. So you can ask it to focus on security, performance, bug detection, code style, testing, or documentation. And then you can set a max timeout for the code review workflow so it doesn't just hang forever and or use maybe more credits than you want. Finally, you can add custom instructions here, which we just kind of have one little line here for documentation. And then you would save the configuration. And just really quick, the only prerequisite to setting this up is to go over to the integrations tab and enabling the GitHub integration. So just go to integrations here. It's obviously already configured for us, but if it wasn't, there'd be a configure in GitHub button. You'd click that, it'd bring you to GitHub where you can approve the Kilo GitHub app to have access to your repo, and then that's that. You'd be connected. Um, so last night, just to test this, I pushed a tiny PR to this API app here, and that's this pull request where I basically just added, one line of a commented out line just to test if it would catch what I changed. And we can see that the Kilo code reviewer left a review here. It reviewed one file. It recommended that it's okay to merge. And it said it checked for security bugs, performance, and error handling, all the things that we checked off. And it said this PR simply adds a single test comment to the page file. The change is trivial and introduces no security vulnerabilities, bugs, or performance concerns. So yeah, it's exactly what I changed. So that was just a little, example of what a review might look like. But we're going to revisit reviews more in the workflow of this development later. So let's go back to development, right? But this time we're going to jump over to the CLI because some people prefer to develop there, right? I know I'm kind of more used to the IDE myself, but I'm really starting to learn and love, the CLI style of development. And I think a lot of super experienced engineers I've found also prefer the CLI. So we're going to jump over to the terminal here, and I hope you can see my screen. We're going to open the Kilo CLI with just the simple command Kilo. Made sure that we're in the right repo. And in the first terminal, with the Kilo CLI open in code mode, since we don't really need orchestrator for the task I'm going to submit, since it's a pretty simple adjustment, we're going to ask it to add CORS headers to the API route so that it can be called from any origin. So for anyone who does API development, that you know, this is a minor but very important security detail that makes it so that this API is more accessible and secure. But I want to add something else, and Scott already touched on this with parallel agents. What if I want to make a different change at the same time, right? So let's pull up another terminal window, and this time we're gonna put this command here. We're going to say kilo code. So that's, to open the CLI, you can either use kilo or kilo code. We're going to use the parallel flag, and we're going to say add a get API health endpoint that returns status okay. So just an endpoint that we can ping to make sure that the server is actually up and running. And I want these tasks to be facilitated at the same time agentically without conflicting to each other with each other. So I can get it done, at double the pace. And that's exactly what Parallel Agents does. So Parallel Agents is available in the CLI and also the IDE. I'll show you where you can access it in the IDE. That's a very new change later. But for this use case, we'll do the CLI because I wanted to show you, this workflow. So we'll go ahead and fire off the first request and the second request. And we can see they both kick off. They're, coding at the same time. They're not conflicting with each other. And I think these should be pretty quick tasks. So it'll probably won't take too long, but we'll just give it some minutes to finish. And I'm going to kind of look through the chat for any questions so far. Someone said, so parallel is less context switching than doing it one by one. So it's a little bit of that, but it's also like more efficient, right? We can do two tasks at once. And as Brendan, my colleague in the moderator chat said, for him, it can be because if he's working and he has another idea, he can send an agent down that rabbit hole instead of storing it in his brain. Which, if you're multitasking, which in this world of agentic engineering is very likely, I think that's one great use case for it. Okay, so they're both done. They created the health route, added the CORS headers. So let's go ahead and exit this parallel agent here with the exit command. And what that's going to do is it's going to commit these changes to a new branch in the repo. So that's that exit signal. It's how it knows to commit the changes. So we can see here the changes were committed to add this branch, add a get health endpoint here. And we're just going to grab that, and it gives you the exact commands to merge them. So I already have the commands here. So I'm just going to copy these over. We're going to check out to the main branch, and we're going to merge. So we can see we inserted the changes with one file changed. And then I'm going to also go ahead and just make sure that we commit the changes from the original agent here for the cores headers by adding the files, get, and committing here. Oh, it looks like we have a little error here. So let's try something else real quick. We can. This is of course a live demo. I did this a bunch of times and it worked fine. Um, but if it doesn't work, oh, there we go. I had the git command wrong, which is so classic. Me being the intermediate developer I am, but it's okay. We resolved it pretty quick. So now we're going to we've merged the changes for the cores headers. We've merged the health API route. And what we're going to do now is we're going to push these changes to our remote GitHub repo so that we can create a PR. So what I'm going to do is push it to a new branch called upgrades. And let's see that go. So there it is. And we can see it gives us the pull request. So we'll go ahead to the browser and open that. Okay, so we're going to open a pull request with these changes. We'll say adding health root and cores headers. This is going to be a disastrously irresponsibly written pull request, but that's all right. So we'll create the pull request. And then if we go over, can you guess where I'm going to head now? We're going to go to code reviews, right? In the Kilo dashboard. And we're going to be able to see that the code reviews bot has already started assessing this pull request. So it's in progress now. These are all the previous code review sessions. It's already reading the request here. And so code reviews, immediate AI powered feedback that starts right when you commit or push a PR. And then it'll give us some comments and suggestions. And if there was anything wrong, which hopefully there's not because I'm such a good agentic engineer, it would give us inline comments and suggestions on that as well. So we're going to give that a minute to do its thing. And it's probably going to take maybe a minute or so. And what we're going to do next is, and I'm really excited. Oh, there it is. Wow, that was really fast. So I was going to skip around to a different part, but let's go ahead and address that. So no issues found, two files reviewed, 95% confidence. Let's see if it caught the changes. So add cores headers to the generate story endpoint and add a new API health endpoint, returning status okay. No notes on security bugs, error handling, or cores implementation. So that's pretty freaking cool. That happened in like 30 seconds. So let's go ahead and merge that, shall we? And okay, so we merged that. And so next, I'm really excited about this part. I think it's a really underrated, under the radar feature that I'm excited to kind of amplify over the next couple weeks. But um, if we wanted to develop this even further, right? But let's say our laptop was running out of steam, or we had to get on the go and use a mobile device or somebody else's laptop, or even if we wanted to just let a different teammate somewhere else dive into the project. Um, we're anti-collaboration, as Scott said, but let's say I got really sick and someone else needed to dive in, or obviously there are still use cases for collaboration, but so now we can do that with Kilo's cloud agents, right? So if we go back to the Kilo dashboard here, we'll find this cloud agents interface where we can develop with Kilo in the web. We can describe our task like we normally would in the IDE or CLI. You can select the repository that it has access to. So let's find ours here. You can pick from the different modes that we also have in the IDE and CLI, and you can pick the different models, right? And you can also add environment variables and setup commands. So but here's the really special part that I referenced earlier that I'm super excited about. And it's not just for cloud agents, for everywhere you interact with Kilo, but it's especially relevant for this use case we're building. We also introduced Kilo sessions this week, which represent, I'm going to share this part here, which represent interface agnostic interactions with Kilo. So Kilo remembers your interactions from all the different places you can access it with information about the repository, the task, the conversation. so that you can pause and resume work from any of the interfaces that you can access Kilo in without losing context, which I think is super cool. And you can even share the sessions with your teammates so they can fork it and resume and carry on however they want. So if we go, the sessions are in the dashboard here, but they're also populated in all of the places where you can access Kilo. So here in the cloud agents, we can see it already has our recent sessions from adding the API health endpoint and the course headers in the CLI. And I just want to, we can give Cloud Agent a prompt in a minute, but I just want to walk through really quickly. If we jump back to the IDE, we can also find this session information by opening this new agent manager tab here, this new button. And we can see all of our recent sessions here. And we can also create a parallel agent in the IDE from this agent manager. So we can have, just like in the CLI, we can have two agents open in this, multiple agents open in the IDE as well, which for people who prefer to code in the IDE, now you don't have to switch over to the CLI to run these parallel agents. So those are both super important features that I think are really going to accelerate the workflow, the handoff, and being able to access Kilo, this all-in-one platform from any interface. And let's say we want to share the session or open it somewhere else. So we can go to one of these sessions here and we can click this icon, right? And it'll ask us if we want to publicly share a snapshot of this session. We'll say yes. What that's going to do is copy a link to a shareable like portal for this session. So we can go back to the browser, we'll paste that link, and we can see that I've shared a session here. You can preview the session so you can get a little snapshot of the recent messages. You can clone the repository that the session was in locally. By it gives you the clone, the command line get command for cloning the repo. You can open it in any of the supported IDEs with a click of a button, and then you can open it in the CLI. So that button copies the terminal command to run the CLI with the session information forked. And then if you already have the CLI open, this command here, which you can copy, gives you the inside the CLI command for session and then forking. So an example of what that would look like in the CLI, go back over here and we can type session, and then you have all these different commands. So you can show the current one. You can list all of your sessions, just like in the agent manager and in the dashboard. You can search recent sessions by title or ID. You can restore a session, share it, fork it, delete it, rename it, all the good stuff. And then you could also paste that link that I just copied, or excuse me, that command that I just copied from the shareable link if you want to restart the session in the CLI. So that's pretty cool. It's one of my favorite new features. And I think for people that have, a broader environment of where they develop, it's super important, right? Because it opens up that environment for where you can code and interact with Kilo. So to summarize, Kilo sessions lets you copy, share, fork, and resume your interactions with Kilo across any of the interface options. Okay, so let's head back to cloud agents and we can take a shot at that. So we're going to open one of our recent sessions here, right? We're going to open where we added the health endpoint. It'll ask you to choose the context. So I have some, my personal workspace and some org workspaces. We're going to select the mode. We'll do code because I'm going to give it a pretty light lift. And then we're going to switch over to Minimax M2. And just as Scott mentioned, Kilo, pretty much at any time, you can switch to any model, right? Even if it's in the middle of a project, and you can use whatever model is best for the task. So we don't really need to use a frontier model for the task I'm going to give it, because this is a quick, efficient change that I'm going to propose. And Minimax M2 is really fast and really cost efficient. It's become one of my favorite models and frankly my go-to for debugging and quick implementation. So if we wanted to, we could add environment and variables and setup commands, but we'll just go ahead and resume that. And what we're going to ask it to do here is update the API to return a 405 message with a helpful note if someone accidentally sends a GET request to our API instead of POST, which is required. So we'll fire that off, and we can see all my recent sessions and all the different repos I have going here. So you can see I did this end-to-end test last night in a different repo. We have that information, and it's already getting to work here. in the cloud. And again, you can access this from your phone, a different laptop, anytime you can access the internet, and you can resume the sessions that you started in the IDE or the CLI. So I'm curious to hear what everyone thinks about this feature because I'm super excited about it, as I've said numerous times now. Okay, so that's going to work for a minute. Okay, it looks like I got caught up maybe because I was this is like the live demo gods. I was messing around with the thing. So we're actually going to start a new session for that. We'll update it. We'll select the repo, code mode, minimax, start. All right, there we go. And while that runs, I'm going to hop into the chat because I know we're going over time. Don't feel pressure to stick around. I'm going to show one really cool other feature at the end. So I think you should stay. But I want to make sure I go through the end-to-end flow. So I'm going to keep going and we're going to answer as many questions as we can. Someone said, hey, syncing was my feature request on GitHub. That's awesome. Absolutely fantastic features and integration. So happy to be part of Kilo Code. We're happy for you to be a part of it too. Not to get sappy, but I come from a community background. I really believe in the power of not only community but open source community. I feel like it creates a special building environment. So I'm really excited for all of you to be here too. Live demo Gremlins. That's funny. Um, the AI will leave the comment you demand, Brian. I know that's right. Um, and then does the parallel agent create a new branch? So it actually uses get work trees. I don't know if you heard that noise, but the cloud agent has a little finish noise. That's fun. It actually uses get work trees under the hood, and it'll create a new branch in your repo with the changes committed when you exit the parallel workflow. So that's that. Okay. Um, So it's done. It successfully committed and pushed all the changes to the remote repo. So if we go to that repo here, I'm going to ask it actually to push a PR. So we can also ask the cloud agent to do git commands like push a PR to the GitHub repo with the changes. So it committed the branch. I'm just being lazy and asking it to push the PR as well. Someone said is Minimax the fastest model on Kilo right now? I don't know. It's definitely like as Brendan said, it's one of the fastest for sure. I think it always blows my mind how fast it is. I don't have the quantitative number on which one is the fastest. But it's extremely fast. And I did a webinar I think actually earlier this week or last week, I'm losing track at this point, where we debugged a really buggy app with Minimax M2 and it was resolving like 7 bugs at a time in like 10 seconds. So super, super fast. Okay. So it pushed a P. Oh, there we go. It opened the PR. And then we're going to create that request here. It's we'll check that its description's good. Add a 4 or 5 error. We'll create the pull request. And we can see the GitHub app or the Kilo GitHub app has added these changes. I want to, so I obviously have ultimate power in this repo. I can merge it right away. But I want to see a code review on this. I want to see how quick it was because the last one was so quick. But that's Cloud Agents. I just exited out of it. But access Kilo from the cloud. You can have it do all the commands and things that it would do in the IDE or CLI. You can resume sessions. I tripped it up by messing around with my browser earlier, but it's super effective for when you need to, code on the go or even if your local machine has a lot of resource drain. Like say you're doing other development work across Kilo or wherever else, and you have a lot of drain on your machine. Well, now you can abstract that drain off to the cloud, which I think is also a great use case. Let's check on. Let's go over to code reviews and see where it's at with this review. All right, so it's working on it. Ooh, it looks like some other people on our team were pushing other stuff. So it looks like it's probably almost done here. And I'm gonna go ahead and look at some of the other questions while that finishes up. So how do parallel agents handle not interfering with each other is one question. Well, as I mentioned before, it uses Git work trees, which is a way for it to commit changes to different branches without conflicting with each other. So it will not ever conflict. And what it does is the original agent in the CLI commits to the whatever branch it's on. The parallel agent, when you exit the flow, commits to a new branch, which you can then view the diff of. You can view what it changed, and you can choose whether or not to merge that based on what it changed. So okay, it looks like it's done. Where did that go? Okay, no issues found. Recommendation merge. It added a get handler that returns a 4 or 5 method not allowed response and helpful error message and usage example. So everything looks good. We'll go ahead and merge that. And then what I'm going to do is quickly, hopefully I don't mess up the git commands again, but I'm going to just bring those changes back in locally. And there we have it. So we're all caught up locally and remotely with this repo. Okay, so now I want to test this, right? And I know we're going over time, but I really think the end is worth it. So I'm excited for everyone to stick around if you can, but no pressure. I want to know how to test this, right? How can we ping this endpoint to verify that it actually works and actually provides the short story before we move on to the next step? Well, I certainly don't have curl request formatting memorized, so let's just go ahead and ask Kilo, right? Shall we? So we'll go to VS Code, and there's also another feature at play here that I haven't mentioned yet, which is super helpful, which is managed indexing, right? So managed indexing provides semantic search across your repositories using cloud-hosted embeddings. You can see the configuration here by clicking this icon with the green light, and we can see that this repo has been indexed. When enabled, Kilo indexes your code to deliver more relevant, context-aware responses during development, which has already been happening for us this whole time. And is also great for when we want to do things like ask a question and get a fast, accurate answer. So we're going to make sure we're in ask mode here so nothing changes. And again, I'm going to stick with Minimax too because we just want a quick answer here. And we'll ask this. How can we test this? Give 3 example requests so that I can send from the terminal and retrieve a story, test the health endpoint, and test the 4 or 5 response to get to the accidental get request. And for context, as Scott mentioned, YOLO, he briefly evoked that phrase. I've actually been on YOLO mode this whole time, which is a special type of auto approval that approves every single command and operation without consent or confirmation or approval from the engineer. So the entire experience is hands off. You should probably only use this if you're not working on anything sensitive or security or secure. We're making a fun little app here. You should only use it if you really trust the AI, which I do in this use case, but it's great for demos. It's great for just full on vibe coding, which I love to do. So that's been on the whole time. That's why it's sort of running through as it is. And likely Kilo would probably do these tests on its own during the development cycle, especially when you put it in orchestrator mode. But for the sake of the demo, I've instructed it not to in the custom instructions so that we can do the tests together. So we'll send that request. And feel free to throw, chats or questions if anything I'm saying isn't making sense. But yeah, we're almost done. Oops. Happens. Okay, let's switch models because something's happening with Minimax here. Maybe we'll see if this works. We're gonna start a new task. Those live demo gremlins, man, they'll get you. All right, there we go. Okay, cool. So we have some test things here. Let's go ahead and make sure that we're running. Let's check that we're in the repo. Npm run dev. Memorize that one at least. And then we'll go back to our terminal here and we'll try this curl request. So we send that off. We can see that it's working in the server side terminal. It's probably going to take a minute because it uses Anthropic's API. So there's a little bit of a handoff there. As a free user, you have to configure the indexing yourself. So you can just configure it from the Kilo dashboard, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. I'll show you how to do it right now while this is loading, actually. So you can go to the Kilo dashboard here. You can go to manage indexing. You can select the project and if you want to search from the code. And then there's a button here that teaches you how to turn it on, right? So you just follow these instructions here. You create a config file and add the following configuration. That's that. Okay, so let's go back to this. Okay, so we got the story here. That's beautiful. Makes me so happy. I'm not going to read it from the terminal because we're going to read it later. But okay, so now that we know that it works, right? Where everything's looking good, everything's working. There's nothing left for this API app except to deploy it to production, right? And if you haven't already guessed, if you haven't already caught on, you can also do that directly from within Kilo. So let's go ahead and go to deploy. All we have to do here is click, and you can see all my failed deployments, which were engineering mistakes by me, but just don't mind that. We'll go to select the repository here. The branch is called master, and then we're going to add our environment variables, which is the Anthropic API key. So no peeking. And what I'm going to do to prevent that is mark it as a secret. We'll paste our key here, and we'll go ahead and create the deployment. And we'll just watch as that loads up. Oops, it failed. Wait, I'm in the wrong workspace. That may be why. So we'll select the repo, we'll do master. And if this fails again, it's probably something I'm doing wrong. So I actually already deployed a successful version of this. So we'll go ahead and just run with that one if it doesn't work. But you can open it. You can view the deployment logs. Looks like it's working. And while that loads, actually, I'm going to open up a new tab. And since we're really cutting it on time, I'm going to show you the last part of this, which is App Builder. Okay, so App Builder is a in the web interface for building apps and websites. Okay, so you can use natural language to prompt Kilo to develop an app alongside a live preview of the app. And then you can also deploy these apps and sites that you build with App Builder via Kilo Deploy as well. So this was kind of released a little bit under the radar this week, but it's super exciting because you can build the full end-to-end app right inside the web. And you can also get the live preview of it as it builds. So it's great for front-end stuff. We're going to use it. Oh, yeah, it's working. We're going to go ahead and use it to build our front-end card really quick. And I think what I'm going to do, since we're way over time here, is I'm just going to show you one that I already built, because I think that's a little bit more effective than seeing how long it's going to take to build it on its own. But what we're going to do is open this app builder here. And this is the experience. So you have a chat. You can describe whatever tasks you want in natural language. And then it'll generate a live preview of the app as you develop. I want to check on the deployment here. Oh, something's happened with my code. It's all good. Luckily, I prepared a backup deployment. So we'll go ahead and go to my personal here, and we're going to show that this is our deployed API app, and it's the same code. We have information on how to implement it programmatically. It has all the requests and information, and also has the API route. And that's what this app builder app actually uses to facilitate the short story integration. So this is the app that it came up with. And we can see at the very beginning of the chat, I asked it this extensive prompt to build a holiday card using the API. I gave it the information on how to agentically program the API calls. It did the development. It kept me up to date on the finished product and what it was building. And then what we can do is we can actually view a live preview of the site here. So this is the finished project, the holiday story generator. So create a personalized, silly holiday story for your development team. We'll say Kilo is our team name. We'll add team members Brian, Scott, Brendan, Alessia is in the chat, I think. Yob might also be in the chat. And we'll go ahead and generate a holiday story. And this is using the API app that we just built, or the same version of it anyway. And while that's loading, we're going to go ahead and answer some questions. And Scott, I don't know if you're still on, but if you want to hop back on and answer some questions with me for a couple minutes, that'd be great too. If not, no worries. Um, there he is.
I'm here.
What'd you think of that end to end flow there?
That was great. I mean, you were ambitious on this live demo. You pulled it off.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, I'm gonna actually read the story it came up with real quick because I feel like we've earned that. So the holiday story. Okay, so the Slack message seemed innocent enough. Team Kilo holiday cookie exchange. Everyone bakes something Friday 2 p.m. Brian, who'd authored the message during a particularly tedious stand-up, had envisioned something wholesome. What he got was Scott arriving with a Tupperware of what could only be described as geological specimens. They're keto, Scott explained defensively, setting down cookies that audibly thunked against the break room table. Almond flour, zero sugar, very healthy. They look like roof shingles, Brendan observed, poking one with his pen. It did not yield. Alessia placed her intricate gingerbread developers next to Scott's offering, complete with tiny frosted laptops and edible bug tickets. I stayed up until 3 a.m. piping these, she said, eyeing Scott's creation. You could have just bought cookies? Where's the team spirit in that? He said. Yob wandered in late, spotted the spread, and immediately pivoted towards the door. My build's failing, can't stay. Your PR passed CI an hour ago, Brian called out. Nice try. Yob sat and produced a grocery bag containing what appeared to be a single enormous cookie the size of a dinner plate. Mall kiosk, it's chocolate chunk? That's a pizza, Brendan said. It's a cookie pizza. There's a difference. Things escalated when Brian cut into Yob's cookie pizza and discovered it was somehow still frozen in the middle. When Yob defended the structural integrity of the partially thawed desserts, Scott tried microwaving one of his keto disasters to soften it. 45 seconds later, the break room filled with smoke. Did something catch fire? Alessia yanked open the microwave to find Scott's cookie hadn't caught fire so much as fossilized further, now resembling a small volcanic rock. The smoke detector disagreed with this assessment and began shrieking. Kill it, Brendan grabbed a chair, swatting at the detector while Yob frantically opened windows, letting in a blast of December air that sent Alessia's gingerbread developers skittering across the table like tiny frosted refugees. Brian, ever the product owner, was already typing in the incidents channel. Non-critical, break room temporarily uninhabitable. Root cause. Scott's cookies may have violated the Geneva Convention. That's going in the retro, Scott shouted over the alarm. The detectors finally stopped. In the ringing silence, they surveyed the damage. One thawed cookie pizza, 5 gingerbread developers, now missing 2 lins, and Scott's Tupperware of what the facilities team would later log as unknown hardened substances. Yo pulled out his phone. I'm slacking the CEO. We need a dedicated cookie testing environment, proper CI CD for baked goods with feature flags, Brendan added, deadpan. So that was pretty long, but that was pretty fun too. So this is the end-to-end app, Story API, deployed, live app deployed with App Builder. If anyone has questions, we'll go ahead and answer them now. And thanks for sticking with me through that whole saga. All right, so I'm going to pull up the questions tab here. Okay. So one question is, great live demo. I'm nervous about committing agentic code directly to the base branch or any branch, or opening a PR without real humans testing locally and real users validating on a staging site. But are you explaining a different use case? So as Brandon mentioned, the cloud agent always commits to a branch, not to the main. And I think this is also tying back to that story that Scott wove of being the end-to-end owner that doesn't need dependencies and trying to remove the friction that relies on other people, right? As AI gets better and better, so will the code reviews. And of course, if you're working on something sensitive, I understand that you might want to get a second opinion. But I think it's really valuable for AI to, at least in those sensitive cases, identify immediate glaring issues that could be, maybe not seen by a human or could not be seen for hours or days. So that's kind of my opinion on that. We'll go some other questions. Sorry, I'm just reading through the chat here.
And I'm gonna hop and let Brian wrap this up. But like I said, thank you all for taking the time to listen to me ramble about Kilo Speed. Reach out anytime. Add me on LinkedIn. Send me an email at scott@kilocode.ai. Really appreciate all the love from the community, and let's keep it going.
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott.
Yeah.
Bye bye. All right, so I don't see any more lingering questions. I think I answered a lot of them in line with uh, the demo. So last thing I want to say is join the Reddit and Discord. You can chat with me there. If you have any questions about the functionality, I'll be happy to answer. I really appreciate all you joining. I know we're way over time. I think I had a lot of fun personally. I really enjoyed that live demo experience. So definitely follow up on Reddit and Discord if you have any questions, and stay tuned for the next live event. People are saying you're fine with us going over time. I appreciate that. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a good Friday and a good weekend.